Never buy land sight unseen. It could be covered in trash. There could be all kinds of flooding issues. Just unlimited amounts of information that you would find if you were to visit the land. Never buy land sight unseen. Don't even think about buying land without a well on it. There's no way to run a homestead or even build a cabin without a well on your homestead. Don't even think about buying land in the high desert. There's not enough water there. You couldn't grow anything. You couldn't water your animals. It's not possible. Don't buy land in the high desert. Or do exactly that. In fact, it's probably nearly a step-by-step guide into how I started a successful homestead, is by doing all those things you never do. And I'll explain why, This is frugal off-grid. I had just been laid off and basically was homeless when I decided to buy the land and pull the trigger and roll the dice at starting my own homestead with next to nothing. You're being foolish if you think that the average person that's struggling to get by and they're looking for a way out of the rat race, if you think they can fly a few states across just to look at a piece of land and so they can inspect it and then turn down 4 or 5 pieces before they find one that's acceptable, that's just not even going to happen. It's not possible. There's no money for that. They can barely afford the land. So what did I do to minimize the risk? I did buy my land sight unseen. But thanks to technology, there are a lot of ways to actually start to kind of zero in whether or not you got to be, a good piece of land without visiting it. So first of all, there's the county record of the property. You can see how many times it's been sold, if there's taxes owed on it, what kind of things are, if there's any buildings that have been permitted and whatever, you'll see all that information. You can look up local wells to the area you're looking at, see how deep wells are in the area. There's a massive amount of research you can do, and guess what? Satellite images are usually not more than a few years old. And so I pulled up the land and looked at the land at least maybe 3 years ago in the past. But if it's flawless then you got a pretty good chance that it's not so bad now. And of course you can look at topography and all those things and make a pretty good educated guess. And when I came onto my property, nobody had ever been here before. Hey guys, it's John from the future, and let's be honest, best decision of my life to start a homestead. And that's why I thoroughly enjoy just sharing with people how I did it so frugally, so minimally. That's why I like to tell my story. That's why there's a free guide on my website, the free ultimate guide to off-grid living. You can Google it or pull it up any way you want to, and it will thoroughly tell you the answer to almost all the basic questions I constantly get. How did I find and buy land? How did I get an address? How do I harvest water? How do I treat and take care of my animals? What would I do in a medical emergency? Just about every question I get answered or questioned 3 times a day about, it's all over there on my free ultimate guide to off-grid living. It's free, check it out. And then, and only then, if you're like, you know what? That was very valuable and I appreciate that information, then feel free to check out my red tea, blue tea, green tea, cornflower, black powder tonic, ebooks, courses, webinar. My webinar is 8 hours long and tells you everything you would ever need to know about what I did and how I started a frugal homestead. So let's get back to the video. I was already able to look up whether it was in a floodplain or not, if there were back taxes owed on it, and pretty much anything that would be catastrophic, aside from if it had been turned into a junkyard since I seen it last, So sometimes you just do your best if you don't have the funds to go see the land. Look at this. This cistern starts here and runs all the way there. It's completely underground. It never freezes. It'll hold 3,600 gallons, and I've got 2 like this. There's also the open pond, which is 4,500 gallons, and then I've got some IBC totes for storage. I've got about 12,000 gallons worth of rainwater storage capability. And all the surface areas like this. And so I would say that right now I haul about half of my water and harvest the other half. And I'm working toward the point where I shouldn't really have to haul water. In addition to the fact that in the future, when I can afford it, I absolutely can put a well in. Is having a well from day one, a fairy tale, just perfectly ideal? Yeah, but you don't have to live perfectly ideal. I've got 10 pigs, that's 400 pounds of pork, 2 horses, cats, dogs, chickens, me, gardens, and I'm not stressed out about water management at all. I would venture to argue that most people don't have this in their backyard. A nice greenhouse with 1,600 gallons an hour running through that pump continuously. There's 20 fish down here. This is about 600 gallons of water. So water's not impossible. And the interesting thing that most people imagine in their minds, they're like, yeah, but you don't have a well out there. But you know what's funny? I would say about probably 90% of people, and maybe 99% of residential homes, they don't have a well either. Their water's also being pumped in from miles away. So if anything ever happened to me or you, we'd both be out of water in that scenario technically, except for I'd be able to harvest 12,000 gallons at a time, and so there's kind of, I think, a false sense of security living in the city where you don't have endless amounts of water just because you think you do. Anything could interrupt that water flow, and then I would actually have more water harvesting and storage ability here. And like I say, in the future I can drill a well, and that'll just be something to work toward,